Sorry. I'm a bit late because um, when I was about to log on, phone rang. Somebody from National Insurance. They're concerned what the government is doing to them too, because they are now trying to explain to National Insurance what's going on. Mind you, they passed the act already, and National Insurance is now being put on board. Unfortunately, this government always get things backwards. They do it wrong before every time, and then they have to go and try to fix it. They look bad, but that's what we got, and we got to stand up to them. They have to say that
Yes.
the government is comfortable, then we should be comfortable. If they're uncomfortable, or we're uncomfortable, then we're uncomfortable agree with that person.
Correct. So to those people who said, but we went last Saturday, what do you say to them?
Rome wasn't built in a day. You cannot expect. Look, they want you to do this protest and go, and they'll be happy. What you need to do is keep the pressure on them, keep your foot on their necks. They got to give up sometime because the government cannot resist the entire population. People are afraid of victimization. You can't victimize all. That's what the nurses at the two polyclinics recently showed them, because all of them came off. They can do victimize all. If national
Correct.
insurance staff come out, national insurance is a specialist department. You can't just take somebody from national insurance and get them a weed whacker and tell them they're going to do the work. They need them. National insurance is a specialty. And as a matter of fact, it is not the insurance that you can get at Sagicor or those other places. It's something completely different. The only way you will learn national insurance is in national insurance department, or what they call it these days now. But so those people have power. The problem is that they don't know how to use it, and a lot of them are too afraid to use it. But government cannot take any steps against them unless they allow the government to do so. It's as simple as that. They have the power. But
So you're saying that the national insurance staff, if they need to come out and join this march and rally, and they need to do something inside there, because if they stop working, what's going to happen? They need those people.
yes, that's why the point I've been making with them for the longest time. They need you. Look at customs. They wanted to put customs in Bra. Customs is a specialty. You don't just wake up one morning and say I'm a customs officer. You don't give the people machetes and cutlasses and hoes and big whackers and say you be a customs officer. You have to train them for it. And same thing with national insurance. You can bring somebody from. I don't care how many degrees you have. If they transfer to national insurance tomorrow, you will be in the wilderness. You wouldn't know what to do. Some very junior people to you will have to come and teach you what to do, because there's only one national insurance in Barbados. So when people talk about, oh, you got this qualification, insurance, and that kind of stuff, it does not make sense, simply because the qualification does not speak to the national insurance rules, the national insurance regulations. They don't. You had people at national insurance. I can mention if I call Tony Thomas. He's retired now. I had no degree, but there's nobody in Barbados knew more about national insurance than he did. And he was never promoted to the level that he should have been at because he didn't have the degree. People look at these qualifications from UWI, wherever they get them from, but qualifications don't work. The national insurance people are the specialists in national insurance. Not actuary, not minister of labor, nobody. National insurance staff has the power. I was telling you earlier about customs. When customs said we ain't going to buy what they did, they left customs alone. Because customs was willing to stand up. National insurance doesn't have any leaders within, and they are members of NUPW, and they don't have any leaders there either. And that is their problem. I have not seen, in all the years I've been working in and around the public service, where they changed something into a statutory board, and it was successful, and it worked well. None. Mind you, national insurance was always a statutory board, but the staff were public officers. all this legislation did is to give people now outside of the public service the right to hire and fire national insurance staff, because everything that they put in the legislation was already there. I challenge anybody to show me anything in the national insurance other than the changes to the personnel policies and stuff that is different from what could be achieved under the current act, the legislation that you had enforced from 1966. Barr wasn't a fool. He knew what he was doing. The fools are appearing now. So I'm very sorry for those people. They will suffer, and then they will be dismissed, and then the yard folks will get their jobs.
Correct.
Because that's what happened. I keep telling these people, when you work at National Insurance, that you were a public officer. Public officers have something called the Public Service Qualification Order. That qualification order sets out what qualifications you must have. There is no such thing as statutory boards. Statutory boards have qualifications for their staff too, but they're not enforceable. You can turn around and say, don't bother about that. I will, my man will get the job. And I told you about the stats. I told you on this program already about one man who did not have a pitman, CXC, GCE, City and Guilds, Cambridge or Level or London, but he ended up being a general manager of the National Housing Corporation. You want to know why? Yard foul. So that is what will happen at National Insurance. Mind you, the people who are trained with National Insurance, they will end up still doing the work while these people walk the place with clipboards in their hand. Because they do not know. On a regular basis, I appear before National Insurance tribunals to represent people who didn't get their benefits, or who are the Sabbath tribunal people who require Sabbath. And in my early days, National Insurance officers at the level of inspectors used to do that work. Now they bring lawyers because they're always looking for ways to keep the average fellow down. The lawyers don't know about National Insurance than those fellas. They're going to ask questions. I remember going to a meeting with one of the lawyers there, and they said, listen to me, you have no such authority. He said, but they're right to make it. I said, they're not like authority either. Read the law. And that person was out for 4.5 years because I was not prepared to sit down with them, and they didn't know what to do after that. 4 years full pay. You want to know why? These experts who come in and get imposed at the top. That is the problem. And all this act will do now, all these new changes will do, is to put 8 new chiefs at National Insurance. Chief of this, chief of that, chief of the third, chief of the fourth. As I said, all chiefs, ancient provision for Indians, and the National Insurance will now become the Barbados Labour Party Employment Agency. That's what will happen. They're destroying everything they put their hands on. You're muted, Marcia.
Yes, sorry about that. With the bill that they passed, and that is why we are out there on Saturday at 10 o'clock. Right here in Barbados, Saturday, August 19th at 10 a.m. And we're saying pull back that bill, and everybody is coming out. I see Mr. Stewart with us tonight. And Mr. Stewart, I tell you, I've been getting so many comments about last night's show, and people just really saying that they were so impressed with you last night and how you presented yourself as a young man. And you're here tonight again, and we welcome you again, sir. But before you jump into the topic that you want to talk about, what do you say to Barbadians who say, well, we were out there last week, why we need to go back again in the hot sun? Why is that necessary? What do you say to them?
Well, I would prefer if they come in the middle of the week and protest and help block some traffic and show the government and the principalities in Barbados that we're serious. So I would encourage those persons who did not come last week to come this week and come out in even bigger numbers because the protest is needed. Don't wait until you reach up in age to then say, well, I should have been out there with Caswell, I should have been out there with Marcia, I should have been out there, you know. I sat down and I did nothing. So I always say in 20 years, when you get in your elder stages and your grandchildren ask you, mommy or daddy or granny, when the protests and stuff was happening, back in these times, where were you? What were you doing? And your answer was, man, they were protesting, you know, but I really ain't bothered to, you know, you become a disappointment. So if you don't want that, as somebody said, be outside. We need to be outside come Saturday. You're muted, Marcia.
Having some trouble there with my mic. The the commissioner of police called, and he said to me, Mrs. Weeks, we have your permit and come on down. And he also said that the police that were there commended the group on how orderly we were. He said, I had such good reports about this group, and I'm so impressed about, about the behavior on the road. And we know how to behave ourselves. We know how to behave ourselves, right? So really right now, I want to continue to encourage you to come up. Kimar, I don't know if it's just me, but there seems to be a lot of wind in your mic.
Um, yeah,
Seem like some crackling, like a crackling sound in
yeah,
the
better
mic.
know,
Speak again. Oh,
better know.
definitely. Oh, yes, definitely better now. Definitely better now. Okay, so now tonight, Mr. Stewart, we're gonna come back to the NIS as we go through. So don't believe that we're not dropping this. This is like the Montgomery boycott that lasted all these 13 months. I see Lumumba is in, and Lumumba is gonna say something as well. But we want to jump in to this topic as we were dealing with last night. We were talking a lot about what seemed to be a lot of corruption in Barbados. And one of the areas that we want to look at is this particular tax. Okay. And I want to just give you the floor to go ahead and just educate the people of Barbados, Mr. Stewart.
Yes. Well, good evening again. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to the audience for the engagement. I am very happy with the feedback, and I hope to be here to continue to help give Marcia and Caswell and all the others, Lynette, Lumumba some strength so that they can be successful in lobbying for the people. Before I get into my topic, I wanted to raise some awareness again to the issue that Caswell brought up about the NAS board and changing the terms of employment for public servants. So if you are you right now the NAS workers are a public servant, and to change over to a board, they're asking the workers to reapply for the jobs, which means that the terms and conditions of their employment is being changed, and they now will be working for the board, and they will no longer be public servants. And the most dangerous thing in that is that all they need is 1 day's notice to fire you. So you have a large section of NAS workers right now feeling so scared that if they do not sign on to their board onto this board, what will happen to their jobs? So we need to stand up against that. Now, why I really came here today is because I wanted to talk about the sewage and this sewage tax, this garbage and sewage tax, the tax on water that every Barbadian household is required to pay. Now, by name, sewage. We know that Barbados had the issue with the sewage, and the government came in promising to tackle this sewage problem. And they also promised to buy us garbage trucks with this garbage and sewage tax. And the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister announced in her budget that they were going to remove the Sanitation Service Authority from the government's consolidated fund, so that government will no longer be required, or central government will no longer be required to fund the Sanitation Service Authority. And
Mm-hmm.
this was part of the IMF program to cut
Mm-hmm.
transfers from the state to state-owned enterprises. So the state-owned enterprise that the government completely removed from government financing was the Sanitation Service Authority. And they said at the time that this garbage and sewage tax will fund the Sanitation Service Authority and the collection thereof. So as we know, it was put on our water bills, and the rate charged to citizens was $1.50 a day. It said that $1.25 is supposed to go to the Sanitation Service Authority for garbage collection, and the other 25 cents will be retained by the Barbados Water Authority.
So you're
And they
saying
had,
that for each day, we're paying $1.50 for
yes,
and so that's the tax. So the garbage and the sewage tax is $1.50. Okay,
yes,
each
yep.
person, or each household. Is it each household
Each
or each
household,
person?
each household,
Each
each
household.
water
Okay,
bill, each
each
bill,
water bill.
yes, will be added $1.50.
Mm-hmm.
And this tax was implemented on the 1st of August 2018,
Mm-hmm.
right? So on the other side, where there's commercial water entities, larger entities, commercial entities, the government put a separate tax on them, same sewage tax, but a separate charge, which was supposed to be 50% of their water bills.
Mm-hmm.
And that amount was supposed to go towards the sanitation. Right? Following me?
Yes.
Good. So you remember we had a big fanfare by Minister Prescott when they brought in the sanitation trucks from
Mm-hmm.
overseas. Upwards, so now we don't even know if it was government money that bought these trucks. Upwards, so now we don't even know if the government actually owned these trucks. But they're saying, or they didn't even say, they gave the impression that the garbage and sewage tax bought these trucks.
Mm-hmm.
But there was some controversy where the Prime Minister had to recant on that truck issue because they were saying that somebody left Barbados to follow the people who were down there, and they had to come back home, and it was not successful. And then a couple of weeks later, Prescott turned up with the trucks down at the port.
Hmm. So we don't know whether it is that we bought the trucks,
Correct.
or the trucks were given to Barbados.
Or it could be that the trucks were purchased with somebody's money, and then the government wrote a contract to repay these people the
Ah.
money. We don't know, right? No. When you dig deeper past that, the garbage and sewage tax, as I said, most taxes come through government's consolidated fund. They're saying now that the water authority will collect this tax. An article came out in the newspaper which said that the water authority has not been paying the portion for the sanitation over to the Sanitation Service Authority. And
Hmm.
in conversations with the union and union members, they're telling the sanitation workers they can't get increase in hazard pay and other amenities because the water authority is not paying over the sewage tax to them.
Hmm.
It
So
was,
so what's
it was,
happening with it? Where is it?
that's where I'm getting to know. The general manager of the water authority said that they have been borrowing the sewage tax to run the water authority. which by borrowing mean that they're the ones who collecting it, so they're just using it for their purposes. He said that in a newspaper article.
That's called misappropriation of government funds. It's a crime.
Misappropriation of funds. And here, this is I was going to say the same thing, Mr. Stewart. Misappropriation of funds is what, and this is what they did with the NIS. Isn't that true, Kimar? Isn't that a similar thing of what was done with the, yeah, with the
But that's what they're
NIS funds?
trying now. That's what they're trying now, to remove the NAS from under central government control, so that they can run it, as Caswell said, with their new appointed whoever's out from the scrutiny of central government. So remember, 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 Kobe, at the point where the water authority is using these sewage tax for their own benefit, not approved by the Ministry of Finance, because the legislation does not give the Minister of Water Resources permission to spend government money. Only the Ministry of Finance to implement such an order. So no permission has been sought from the Minister of Water Resources or the Minister of Finance to do that deed, but it is happening. And it was written in the paper, and the general manager actually came out and said this is what is happening at the Water Authority. What's dangerous about this? What is dangerous about this is that you cannot see any public records whatsoever, no central bank report, no IMF report, no reports from Parliament, no gazette. There is no public record that can show you how much the garbage and sewage tax ever made in Barbados since its implementation. No records,
You
and I
see,
challenge
you're serious?
anybody.
You're serious about that? That there's nobody knows, because they haven't done financial statements on this.
The Water Authority's financials are behind time years, and no financial statements were tabled for that organization for quite some time.
Wow.
And
But isn't there a bill that there's a law of financial, I can't remember what they call it, but where according to that law they need to present financial statements?
Every
yes,
statutory board has that's a provision in their legislation. But statutory boards are run by politicians, and politicians who make the law and who ignore the law. And there is no mechanism right now for punishing lawbreakers, who elected lawbreakers especially. Look at the Auditor General's report. The Auditor General's report, year after year after year, speak to a lot of malfeasance. And what happens? He writes it again the next year, and again the following year, and nobody does anything about it. Nobody gets locked up. Nobody gets brought before tribunals. You know, the people at the lower level get put before tribunals all the time, and they keep me quite busy. But I don't get a chance to go and represent the big fellas, because the big fellas don't get charged. Because I will tell you, the problem with that is our system is so corrupt that the people who should be monitoring the politicians, prime minister and all of them, are appointed by the prime minister. So or put to act by the prime minister. So if the prime minister decides, well, you are acting, you're gone. So you see, there's no independence. The civil service should be independent and allowed to operate as independent service should. But if they do that, politicians will get locked up. So you change the rules, you change everything. Look at the police. Recently, and they cast me for it because they went and appoint a second deputy commissioner. But you remember that there was
yeah,
no provision in the law to do so. And I remember because I did some consultations with the prison, police, and fire service, so I had to read the legislation. And when I say no something, I remember that there's only one deputy. I went and checked. There it was, and they cursed me all over the place. Then when they went and checked for themselves, they went and passed piece of legislation to do the damage that they had done and backdate it for a couple of, for at least 2 years.
I
So that,
remember that.
yeah, you see, the problem is, but then when you do these kind of things for policemen, the policeman can be grateful. And the career policeman who was out there working hard, but because he doesn't show any interest in politics, he ain't gonna get promoted. The police force now is being destroyed, and it's being destroyed by the politicians who want to control it. So you know now the politicians commit crime, and a constable, let's say a constable, want to report one of them. Constable in trouble. I remember the thing where down in Deacons, a police constable quite rightly, this fella's a hero. I don't know him. I like to shake his hand. When the drug lord fella called the prime minister, had on she on speed dial, and said the police here was up me, and she tried to get the policeman instructions. The police refused. I don't take instructions from you. So then the call had to be made, and then the person who gave the police instructions could call off the police.
But you speaking about that issue, but I want to carry you back a little bit to we had a whole police commissioner who was sent home or put on retirement for wiretapping. And when the government changed, the government actually brought back this person to be a consultant on crime.
Um, I'll explain something to you. One of the things I have done, or the criteria send me to do, is fraud examinations. Teach me how to detect fraud. I did that course with the CUNA Management School and the people in New Orleans. And one of the things that people do, the police out there do, is to get people with the experience in law breaking to teach them how they break the law. I'm not saying that somebody broke the law. I'm saying to you that it is practice. That if you know of a situation, and you know of a, especially if it comes to reform, the FBI and everybody else is taking them and use them as informants, and people have how to do the training.
Well,
Sometimes they set the backslide, but so that's not normal practice.
yeah.
Not,
But that's a serious. But
I am not saying that anybody broke any law or anybody did anything wrong. I am just
but
explaining to you what happens in the outside world, that you use criminals to teach the police how they, because sometimes the police don't even know. I remember when these scenarios when they give us the case studies to do, the police weren't up to scratch yet. The people that are doing things, the police have to find out how to find out from the criminals. Even with drugs, sometimes they got some drugs that got people real high, and people don't even know, the authorities don't know about them yet. So the police and the law enforcement officials have to use people with the experience.
hmm,
I don't think
well,
it is.
well, that's a very serious thing because if it is that you were caught, evidence tabled, and you were tried and found guilty,
No, he wasn't tried for
released.
guilty. If you're speaking about the same thing I know about,
Oh,
the
oh,
he was suspended, but they call it in the public service interdicted from the performance of his duty.
okay.
The
Well,
problem here is that the then if you look at the correspondence, the chairman of the commission claimed that he spoke with the governor general. The governor general telling him what to do. Well, there's no way you could have convicted that man for any wrongdoing at that point, because the governor general is the person who you have to appeal to, and the last leg of your appeal is the governor general. Now, if the governor general is involved up front, I don't care what you do. Then we got nobody else now that you can go to. So his
okay.
process has been tainted. He might have been accused of a lot of things, but then because it was done so badly, you can hold him.
Mm.
But the policy was never. This
You
policy
know,
was
you
never
guys
had.
are
Sorry.
interesting. I tell you, corruption. Listen, now I want to go back to this garbage and sewage tax. So you're saying that it was the BWA that collects the tax, but why wasn't it collected through BRA?
Um, if you
Am
collect,
I understanding that correctly?
Going into a slash fund.
look, If it's
This is where we
collected
turn
by BRA,
the SOE into discussion.
BRA has to send it into the consolidated fund. When you want money in the consolidated fund, you have to get you
Yeah,
want minister, you gotta get something from parliament, all kind of stuff. When you have it as a statutory board, you stick your hand in it and take out some. There's little or no
correct,
accounting. You send it
correct.
after statutory board. That is what, and I can tell you something.